Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. The Social Democratic Party of Germany, SPD, has two new leaders. It was decided in an election or a vote among all SPD members that these two people, that is Saskia Esken and what was his name again? Norbert Walter Borjans, yeah, that these two people, a man and a woman, will be the future leaders of the Social Democratic Party. Now, in this video, I want to explain a little bit who these people are. I don't really want to go into much detail, but politically where they stand. And also, I want to tell you what that could mean for the government of Angela Merkel in Germany. Because remember, the CDU and the CSU are in a grand coalition with the Social Democrats. So they are in the ruling coalition at the moment, and this change of leadership in the Social Democratic Party could have a large impact on this coalition of Angela Merkel in Germany right now. All right, so first of all, these two people are basically from the left wing of the Social Democratic Party. Remember, I mentioned in earlier videos on, for example, Kevin Kühnert, who is the head of the youth organization, the Jusos, the Jungen Sozialisten, the Young Socialists. That is the youth organization, right, of the Social Democratic Party. And he is a very, very left-wing person. He is not, so let's say one group is more Social Democrats and the other group is more Democratic Socialists, I would say. For US Americans, I guess you could describe it in a way that the one side is more like the business Democrats and the other ones are like the socialists, like Bernie Sanders or something like that. Like Clinton and Sanders. That is maybe a way that people who know US politics could understand this divide. All right, so Kevin Kühnert, for example, is, I would almost say, the most powerful head of this left-winged part, the socialist part of the Social Democratic Party. And he is, of course, also in favor of the two people who won. The alternative in the last round of election was Mr. Olaf Scholz and another woman that I really don't know. Sorry, it's also not important. And Olaf Scholz, you know, maybe from my previous videos, he is the Vice Chancellor of Germany and the Secretary of Finance. And so he has a lot of experience under his belt, and he is always described or presented, I should say, as the reasonable lefty. Because remember, he just presented a budget with zero new debt. And that is, of course, something that the left part of the Social Democratic Party doesn't like. They always want more debt because they want to invest money here and there, and they can never have enough debt, no matter what the situation in the country is. But the more reasonable Social Democrat or the more conservative leaning centrist Social Democrat, Olaf Scholz, with his no new debt budget, he was not elected new leader, but these two very, very left people. And they are also, as I said already, in the camp of Kevin Kühnert, the socialist, or one could almost say communist actually, who wants to nationalize German companies like BMW. He wants to confiscate private property. He said, for example, also that people should not have the right to rent out houses or apartments in which they don't live themselves. That means that citizens of Germany should only have the right to possess houses that they live in themselves. So a privateer in his Germany could no longer be a landlord. So the only people who could rent out apartments could be the state in his world. So that gives you a little a little hint of where these people stand, and that this is no longer something that most people would describe as social democrats, but socialists, really, right? Or even commies, right? So this is where they stand, and it was almost 50-50. It was a very slim margin, somewhere in the between, I think it was around 55%. Don't quote me on the number now, but it was a slim result. So and that is not surprising, because these are really two worlds, two versions of the Social Democratic Party that were on, that people could vote on. Yeah, it was Olaf Scholz, that's the more centrist, Angela Merkel friendly version, and then this far left loony faction that is really like AOC or like Bernie Sanders in the United States. They want to nationalize companies, they want to confiscate property, and so that the state really seizes the property of the citizens, and then distributes this property among their comrades, basically. That is what they want. And they won. And officially, they will be elected, I think, with high probability. I mean, it is a vote among the members of the party, and that needs to be respected. But officially, I think next Friday on December 6th, this is, oh, St. Nicholas Day, actually. Cool. That is when they will be officially elected by the party convention. And they also have to change the rules for that, because normally the party has one leader, and this time they decided to have, this pair of a man and a woman. It's like a king and queen, so to speak, of the party. And for that, they have to change the, I don't know how you call it, but the constitution of the party, kind of the rule book. And yeah, that will be changed, and I think they will be elected. But it is actually more complicated than that, because I think now people start to realize in the Social Democratic Party, especially with all the discussions and with all the interviews that went on afterwards, that these new leaders could actually lead to a breaking of the coalition in Germany on the federal level. The grand coalition of SPD, CDU, and CSU will probably not survive until spring next year, or even until next year, if they can realize what they want. What they want, for example, is the new leadership of the Social Democratic Party. That is, they want to renegotiate the coalition contract, and they want a different budget, obviously. And that would lead then probably to a breaking of the coalition. And this would mean that the options for Angela Merkel are then to form a minority government, which would be possible because, as I told you in the previous video, the budget for 2020 has already passed the parliament. So that is, well, I think I didn't, well, now it's a heads up for you in case I didn't mention that. Yeah, the budget was passed in parliament. So that means she could rule in a minority government if she gets enough votes from other parties for 1 year, until we have or until the next elections, that is in 2020, that is right, 2022, I think, yeah. And the other option is, of course, new elections, and that is what the AfD, for example, wants. That is something that the Social Democrats don't want, I think, because they would lose a lot of seats in parliament if the polls are any measure for what's going to happen then. And many commenters therefore describe this as a crisis of identity, or a path of self-destruction that the Social Democrats are on. Years ago, commenters in the mainstream news already started saying, well, we shouldn't really bash the Social Democrats anymore. That's not really fun anymore. I mean, if the body is already on the floor and it is starting to rot, you shouldn't kick it anymore. I mean, it's clearly dead, right? So people start to have a little bit pity, and it's not cool anymore to bash the Social Democrats. Nevertheless, this Kevin Kühnert, this leader of the youth organization, he seems to be very charismatic with very, how should I say, zealous or ideologically left-leaning young people, crusaders of the left, basically. And so the youth organization had a massive influx of members recently. I think 20,000 new members within a year or something I read. So he becomes very powerful, and this youth organization in the Social Democratic Party starts to influence decisions of the party in general in a big way recently. So he is even though he's young and it's just the youth organization, quote unquote, he has a lot of influence and he is a very powerful player in this party. And as I said, he is very far left. It is no longer Social Democrats then. We should call it by a different name then, I think. All right, so depending on how these two new leaders that will very probably be officially elected next Friday until something happens. But as I said, something could happen because now maybe some older, more influential leaders of the SPD, they thought, Scholz will make it with all his experience. I'm sure the members will be reasonable. Yeah, maybe now they wake up and they would actually veto the decision of the party members. I have no idea how that would work out. I don't know if they actually can do that, but technically they could, I think. That would probably mean that there will be more infighting, and the civil war on the left would just blow up to even larger proportions than it is already, and probably more fracturing would occur. Then, I mean, the left is very fractured in Germany. There's the Green Party, you have the Social Democrats, you have the Commie Party, Die Linke. That is already pretty fractured. And then you have a CDU that basically filled the gap in the center that was once occupied by the Social Democrats, and they can't go back there anymore because the Angela Merkel CDU is already filling that volume in political face space that is social democratic politics, basically. Nobody thinks that the SPD is a social democratic party anymore. That's the thing, basically. This is why they are dropping in the polls, and they're also not a workers' party anymore, as I said. Most of the people in the SPD, they don't even know a worker anymore. They don't have a worker in their family or in their circle of friends even. They're absolutely disconnected from people who work productively for a living. All right, so I just wanted to give you this piece of news and tell you a little bit about what that could mean. So it could mean to a minority government or to new elections. Or another option would be that the CDU around Angela Merkel just agrees to all these very, very expensive demands that these new far left social democrats would have. And by expensive, I mean expensive not for the CDU, but expensive for the productive workers of Germany, for the taxpayers, of course, because they are the ones who have to pay all that stuff. And I don't really think that the CDU is the representative of the German worker or of productive people, but they are still seen as that. You always have to bear in mind the reality of how things actually are is one thing, but perception is the other thing. And they, even though the CDU has no intention to protect the income or the wealth of the hardworking Germans, they at least have to keep up appearances because that's part of their voter base. And there would be a conflict there. So there is a breaking point when they really cannot sell that to their electorate anymore, and then there would be a problem. So I really don't think that the CDU could just agree to all these demands just in order to save the coalition. That's just my perspective, and I will of course keep you posted how that goes on. If the coalition breaks apart, you will surely hear about that from me. Okay, so stay tuned, and I'm already excited of what will happen next, especially also I think Friday will not bring any big surprises. I think these two far left loonies will be officially elected by the delegates on the party convention, and I will just keep you posted. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you had a great weekend. Be safe wherever you are. Servus, Kameraden.